Yahoo Fantasy Auto Racing, the Tucson Racing group. We just got through week 26 in the NASCAR Sprint Cup season. The Air Guard 400 at the Richmond International Raceway was held this past Saturday night, the regular season finale before the Sprint Cup chase for the championship begins. The race results from Saturday night's race: Denny Hamlin clinches the top seed in the playoffs by picking up the victory on Saturday, edging out Kyle Busch, Jimmy Johnson, Joey Logano, and Marcos Ambrose. Joe Gibbs Racing had 3 of the top 4 cars with Hamlin, Busch, and Logano this week. The overall point standings actually reset now, as the playoffs will kick off next week at the New Hampshire International Speedway in Loudon, New Hampshire, on their 1-mile flat oval. Denny Hamlin clinched the top seed by virtue of having 6 regular season victories. He will go into the playoff number 1 with a 10-point advantage on the second winningest driver in the regular season, Jimmy Johnson, who had 5 victories, and by virtue of that has 5,050 points to Denny Hamlin's 5,060. The way this works, every other driver that picked up victories gets 10 points for the wins they scored. So third going into the championship chase will be Kevin Harvick and Kyle Busch. Those drivers each had 3 victories during the regular season. Kurt Busch picked up 2 victories, so he will start the championship chase in 5th. Tony Stewart and Greg Biffle both had a victory each. They will actually start the playoffs tied for 6th. 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th will be Carl Edwards, Jeff Gordon, Jeff Burton, Matt Kenseth, and Clint Bowyer. None of those drivers won any races this season, but they were good enough to make the top 12 in points, the cutoff for who qualifies to get to run for the championship. The championship will take place over the next 10 weeks in the NASCAR season to close out at Homestead, Miami in November. Race notes this week: there really wasn't a whole lot of race notes. This race was rather uneventful. Usually this race is marked by the chase for 12th in the point standings: who gets in, who gets cut out, who gets to run for the championship, and who, unfortunately, will run no better than 13th when all is said and done. That was a non-factor all evening, as Clint Bowyer, who had to already finish 29th or worse to even give anyone else a chance at making it into the top 12, ran in the top 5 all evening. So Bowyer pretty much shut the door on Mark Martin, David Rudiman, Ryan Newman, and Jamie McMurray. Greg Biffle was notable, though. He was terrible this evening on Saturday night. He was pretty much running with the terrible Dale Earnhardt Jr. all evening long. So Biffle showing some chinks in the armor, not taking any momentum into that final 10-race chase. Jeff Gordon also showed some signs of struggling. He was able to rally for a 12th place finish when all was said and done, but Gordon did not have a very satisfying day and definitely did not carry any momentum going into the final 10 races as well. Some unusual names were running up near the front all evening long. We had some unusual qualifiers like Paul Menard, who qualified in the top 10. He was unable to stay there, but A.J. Allmendinger, Joey Logano, and Marcos Ambrose all showed very strong performances this week and got very good finishes to show for their work. The story really was lead changes. There was a lot of green flag racing, a lot of passes for the lead under green flag conditions. Not really a whole lot of racing for the lead per se, but lead changes definitely defined the action, as Denny Hamlin, Jimmy Johnson, Clint Bowyer, and Juan Pablo Montoya all showed strengths at different times. Hamlin wound up being the victor. Kyle Busch did put on quite a show trying to run him down in the last 25-30 laps or so, but pretty much ran out of equipment when all was said and done. In the Tucson Racing group, we turn our attentions to the Fantasy League. The winner this week, Hulk Smash, with 334 points. Quite a few drivers this week, or quite a few owners this week, had some very high scores. Hulk Smash was the highest indeed. Had 3 drivers in the top 10 this week. Kyle Busch 2nd, Clint Bowyer 6th, and A.J. Allmendinger in 8th. And then brought Jeff Burton home in 13th for a very good score this week and the victory. Second this week, missing out on first by just 7 points, was The Wall Always Wins. The Wall started winner Denny Hamlin, had 2 more drivers in the top 10 with A.J. Allmendinger and Kevin Harvick, and then had David Rudiman in 19th, plus an additional 10-point bonus from Carl Edwards, who was on the pole this week. Third this week was High, Wide, and Handsome, finishing 19 points off the pace. This team did wind up winning the summer section, as Yahoo does like to separate the season into thirds, but unfortunately that does not equate to anything in the Yahoo fantasy standings, as the overall standings are the ones that matter. High Wide started Denny Hamlin in first, had 2 more drivers in the top 10 with Clint Bowyer and Kevin Harvick. and then had Paul Menard, who again was in the top 10 for a portion of the race, but wound up finishing 26th. Fourth this week was Whoa, a left turn with 302 points, 32 points off the pace. That team had 4 drivers in the top 15. Clint Boyer and A.J. Allmendinger were 6th and 8th, respectively, and Jeff Gordon was 12th with Matt Kenseth in 14th. Rounding out the top 5 this week was Lightning McQueen with 291 points, 43 points off the pace. Started race winner Denny Hamlin and had Clint Boyer in 6th, but unfortunately had David Ruderman in 19th and Sam Hornish a disappointing 28th. 6th this week was Team Edwards with 290 points, missing out on the top 5 by just 1 point this week, 44 points off the pace. Started race winner Denny Hamlin, but had no other drivers in the top 10. Had Jeff Burton 13th, Brad Keselowski with a marginally impressive 15th place run this week, and Regan Smith had a 25th place run. He was another driver that was actually running pretty well until late in the race. He had some problems with some other cars on the track. 7th this week was Greek Thunder with 238 points, 96 points off the pace this week. Kyle Busch in 2nd was this team's top driver. No other drivers in the top 10. Had Jeff Burton in 13th, and then Paul Menard 26th. Earnhardt Jr. was 34th, and 10 bonus points from Carl Edwards' pole. 8th this week, oh no, a blowout. 227 points, 107 off the pace. Had one driver in the top 10, that was Clint Boyer in 6th, but then started Jeff Gordon 12th, Scott Speed 24th, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. in 34th. And rounding out the field this week, Kane Rules, once again scoring no points. In the overall standings, High, Wide, and Handsome has 7,173 points, leading Lightning McQueen now by 316. Hulk Smash sits 3rd, 425 points off the pace, with The Wall Always Wins sitting 4th, 568 points off the pace. Rounding out the top 5, Greek Thunder is 861 points back, with Team Edwards 906 points back in 6th. Whoa, a left turn is over 2,000 points back in 7th, with Oh No, a blowout sitting 8th, and Kane Rules is almost 5,000 points back, sitting in 9th. Next week is the Sylvania 300 at the New Hampshire International Speedway. Again, the playoffs do not change the scoring in any way, so you're going to continue to set your teams as you normally would. You're not going to get any additional starts for anybody. It really doesn't affect anything as far as the fantasy game goes. So you'll be able to go ahead and set your lineups this coming week here, as the pool will lock for your drivers on Friday at 2 a.m. and your starters will lock Sunday at 10 a.m. So we hope to see you back next week for Week 27, the first week of the chase for the championship in the 2010 Sprint Cup season.